This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you have landed smack dab in the middle of Creep Street. Welcome aboard.
Hello.
Real quick up top, of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. Follow us on TikTok.
Tickety-tock.
Tickety-tock. Also on Facebook, we have a forum where daily we like to interact with our listeners, post memes or funny stories, scary stories, episode suggestions. It's called Citizens of the Milky Way. It's on Facebook. Anyone can join it. Just click that Let Me In button, and one of us will let you in. Mm-hmm. And of course, if once a week is not enough for you...
And it's not.
It's not, folks.
It's simply not.
Simply irresistible this Creep Street is. You just head on over to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast, where you can get all sorts of goodies. In fact, Momo, we've got two new top-tier subscribers.
Ooh, you know I love to hear it.
Oh, double dipping this week. We have two new names to add to the list at the end of the show, so stick around for that.
Yes, please.
And also, of course, we've been advertising it on social media and stuff. We have Volume 4 of Listener Stories.
That's right.
Will be coming up at the very beginning of July, so send those stories, and we've already got some excellent.
Oh, it's going to be a great
stories.
episode.
It's going to be so fun, so just keep sending those in. Whatever kind of story it is, you just send it on in. Short, long, medium, well done. Just send it on in.
Please do.
But Momo, I want to just speed through all this today because, well, today's episode is a big one.
It is a big one.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Maureen, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about perhaps the most infamous, the most notorious, the most well-known haunting in the UK.
Yeah.
Today we are talking about the Enfield Poltergeist.
Ooh, did you feel that shiver just go down your spine, Creep Street? I'm feeling it. This has been one long time coming. It's been suggested countless times.
So many times. I mean, if you don't know, if you're not in the know, this is the story of The Conjuring 2.
Yes, which obviously, is not 100% faithful to the original story, which is okay.
Which is okay.
That's what we've said it before. That's what Hollywood does. Sometimes very personal, scary experiences are hard to translate onto screen. You need added things to sort of get it across. So it's not like it's bad. It's what Hollywood does. It's got to do it.
It's got to do it. And to be fair, though, this story that we're talking about today, the Warrens aren't even really involved with, because the Warrens didn't really actually do all that much regarding this case.
Right. Spoiler alert, the nun, Valak, all that stuff was added. There's no nun, anything like that. But believe me, what's here is very scary.
Very scary. And what actually did happen could have been a fantastic movie in its own right.
There's actually a wonderful UK miniseries called The Enfield Haunting. Like Matthew McFadden's in it and stuff like that. Really good. It's much closer to the source material, if you will, or the real event. So, but Maureen, speaking of all these films and television, butter our butts with our sources today.
Okay, come on. Our main source for today was a book called This House is Haunted by Guy Playfair.
That's right, one of the original investigators.
Yes, exactly.
So right from the horse's mouth.
Right. So this source is really like the go-to source for this story.
Yes.
For this haunting, this poltergeist activity. So this story takes place between August of 1977 through April of 1979. This is the most documented case of poltergeist activity ever. In fact, there were over 1,000 instances of poltergeist activity recorded in the home. The family that lived in the home that was really affected by it, and our main players for today, was the mom of the family, Peggy, Margaret, age 14, Janet, age 11. Janet is kind of the one that the activity really
focuses on.
Yeah, really focuses on.
Is she like the middle daughter?
Yes.
Okay.
And the oldest daughter, Margaret, had a lot of activity surrounding her as well, but Janet was the one with the most of it.
Right, because how many kids were there all together?
4. Because there's also Johnny, age 10, who was like in and out because he was in boarding school.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then Billy, age 7.
That's right. But the boys aren't really in the picture.
No, the boys, the youngest boy, they really don't mention the boys all that much in the book. They mention that the older boy, Johnny, who's 10, is like there sometimes, and sometimes he's not there because he's in boarding school for some like unspecified reason.
Right.
And then Billy is age 7, and they just don't really mention him all that much. I don't know.
Right. Because didn't they give him more of that? He had like that tent place where he would
Yeah,
hide.
yeah.
And then like I can't remember what the Bindi Man or
Yeah.
the guy, which I think is getting its own movie.
Oh, cool. That'll be
uh,
scary.
I can't even remember. It's not the Bindi Man, but whatever
I don't remember what he was called
creature
either.
is. Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the Hodgkins family. They were living in government-assisted housing, surviving on welfare and child support. The father of the family had just run off with another woman, and so he would come back like once a month to bring over child support, and he would like bring the new woman with him, and she was like much younger and more attractive than Peggy, and it just was like a whole thing, and he would like, so he's an asshole, basically.
Wow. Yeah.
But on August 30th, 1977, something very strange happened. Janet and Johnny shared a room, and Janet and Johnny said that their beds were shaking. Now, Peggy didn't think much of this. She thought her kids were just, fooling around and being little freaks.
Little hooligans.
Exactly. But the next night, they called Peggy in because they could hear like shuffling around their room. Like someone with like slippers or shoes or something was just like shuffling back and forth in their room.
Right.
And Peggy could actually hear this too.
It always starts off slow.
It starts off slow. And then they heard 4 loud knocks. And then the chest of drawers slid about 1.5 feet towards the door. Peggy was freaked out, but she moved the chest of drawers back, and when she did that, it just slid back again towards the door. And then Peggy tried to move it again, but this time it wouldn't budge. So they were all extremely freaked out, and they didn't really know exactly what to do, so they went over to their neighbor's house and knocked on the door, the Nottinghams.
Okay. Which, quick note, interesting that it knocked 4 times. Usually in these cases, it's like 3.
Right. To like kind of make fun of the Trinity.
Yeah, interesting that it went with 4.
Right, exactly. And that maybe goes along with how this is more of a poltergeist activity rather than a demonic haunting of some kind. But who knows, really? So they went over to the Nottinghams, and the father of the family, named Vic, and the son of the family went over to the house to see if they could find anyone in there responsible for the knocking and things like that. They couldn't really explain how the chest of drawers would move on its own like that, but they wanted to see if there was someone hiding in the house.
Right.
They searched the house and they couldn't find anything. No one was hiding anywhere. There was nothing that they could see that was wrong. So they didn't really know what else to do. So the next thing they did was they called the police. The police came over, and one of the police officers went ahead and checked the plumbing, thinking that maybe the plumbing was responsible for the knocking. And the other police officer was there and saw a chair wobble from side to side and then slide 4 feet across the floor. The police officer even made a official report saying that she saw this.
Yeah. And also another side note to the Conjuring Part 2's credit. If you see photos of the real house where they lived and then the photos of the set, they recreated it to perfection.
They really did.
It really does. The set they designed in the film is almost identical to the house where the family
It looks
lived.
really good.
It's really good.
Now, the next day, Johnny's marbles and Legos started flying around the house. And the marbles, when they picked them up, were hot to the touch. Now, after 3 more days of this weird poltergeist activity of knocking and things flying around, and especially these Legos and marbles are really like the big things that were just like being thrown around the house.
Right. Which can be mean little bastards.
That'll hurt.
Especially a damn marble.
Oh, for sure. It sounds like it's not that big of a deal, but if it hits you, it'll hurt.
Yeah.
So Peggy decided to call the Daily Mirror to try and get some help. Which I know seems like it's like some very like attention grabbing or attention seeking behavior.
Right.
But Peggy really needed help at this point, and she really had nowhere else to turn. She had no idea what else to do. So she thought that maybe the Daily Mirror would be able to get her in touch with some people that could help. And then if the Daily Mirror ended up writing a story about them, that maybe someone would see the story and then decide to help because of seeing them in the newspaper.
Right. And it paid off.
It paid off. So the Daily Mirror apparently has like or at the time, not now, but at the time, had a like no ghost policy. They were like, we don't really do ghost stories and things like that. But this story just sounded so good, they couldn't fucking help themselves.
It was tasty. It was tantalizing.
It was. So they went forward and they were like, all right, we smell a friggin' story here. Let's go for it. That was a sniff.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know out there, folks, citizens. They sent out a reporter and a photographer to go check it out. So the reporter and the photographer were there, and they stayed for like a few hours, but the whole time they were there, nothing happened. It was very strange. So they decided, all right, this is nothing. We're gonna go. So they leave the house. But as soon as they step out of the house, marbles and Legos start flying around the room, the living room of the house. So one of them ran outside to come and ask them to come back in. They hadn't even reached the street yet. It happened all that fast. So the photographer came back in, or both of them came back in, but the photographer was hit in the head with a Lego so hard that it left a mark or a bruise.
If you've ever stepped on a Lego, you know it.
Yeah, or if you've had a Lego whipped at you.
Yeah, or especially a marble.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
God.
Oh, yeah. But from the angle from where the Lego was coming from that hit the photographer in the head, there was no way that the children could have done it. So that was very strange. And it also was thrown incredibly fast. So there was no way that the children could have done it. And also they would have seen the children like have to wind up really hard to throw it, or who knows if they even could have thrown it that hard. So they came back a couple of days later with another reporter to do some more observation. Mr. Fallows was the new reporter that came, and he was the first person that really used the word poltergeist with the family.
Okay, interesting.
He was like, poltergeist activity often happens around the time of children, especially young girls going through puberty. And Peggy was like, what's that?
Okay.
So yeah, yikes.
So
Peggy
grown woman, the mother,
didn't know what puberty was, which is hard. You hate to hear it.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah. So Mr. Fallows explained it to her. She was like, this is what puberty is. And then she was like, oh, yes. Because she knew what puberty was. She just didn't know the word for puberty, So she was like, oh, yeah. Margaret just got her first period a few months ago in March.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Fallows then asked Peggy if she wanted to move, because apparently a lot of people in this public housing like this, if they wanted to move to a different house or to a better house or whatever, sometimes people would say that their house was haunted.
And that was something that came up in another episode we did that took place in Britain. It was a haunting, and people at first didn't believe them because they thought they were trying to basically get out of their housing.
Yeah, which is so wild. I don't know if that's a thing in America where people claim that their houses or their apartments or whatever are haunted.
Right. There's
they want to
certainly
get into a new thing. I'm sure that happens.
Right. I mean,
sometimes
we certainly have our version of like council housing here, but like I've never heard of like
someone claiming that their house is haunted just because they wanted to leave. But maybe that is a thing in America too.
It's the opposite here. It's like you say your house is haunted when you want to bring in the money.
When you want that money, honey.
That's right. It's a selling point if your house is haunted.
Oh yeah.
You want that house.
Oh yeah. It's like that episode of Nathan For You.
Yeah.
Mr. Fallows was like, "So, do you want to move?" And she was like, "No, I don't want to move." So that kind of made it seem more real in the mind of Mr. Fallows because he was like, okay, so these people don't want to move.
Which it kind of creates a double-edged sword because on the one hand, you're right, it does dispel that notion of them, they're just doing this to get better housing or something. But at the same time, you're also looking at it like, hey, how about think about your fucking kids?
Right. But at the same time, I mean, she doesn't know this.
Exactly.
But maybe this activity would follow them if they moved to another house anyway.
Especially if it's a poltergeist.
Right, exactly. She, I'm sure, didn't know that at the time, but that is something that is worth noting.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm very torn with Peggy in this story about her not moving because on one hand, I really understand her not wanting to move. Like, her brother lived down the street. She had really great neighbors.
You're right.
She had lived there with the family for 12 years. The family is going through a hard time with the father leaving. They kind of she wants to have some sort of stability for the family.
Exactly.
And they liked where they lived. But at the same time, it's like maybe it's worth moving to see if that would help this activity that is affecting your family.
Right. Right.
But at this point, too, it is very early on. So it makes sense at this point that she's like, I don't want to move because this has only been happening for like I don't know exactly at this point how long it had been going on, but like only a few weeks or something like that at the most at this point.
Right.
So it's just, you'll see as we go forward, like you can make up your own mind if you think Peggy was in the right or in the wrong about not moving. So I don't know. Also, financially, it would have been hard for them to move, but I think if they could move to another council house, maybe that would help with it. I don't know. It's just a lot. It's a lot, folks. It's a lot. But regardless, Peggy said she didn't want to move, and Mr. Fallows was like, you should call the Society of Psychical Research. And Peggy fainted because she thought he said a psychiatrist. Apparently, a psychiatrist had come to the house, and that is a part of the reason why Johnny had to go to boarding school, because like a psychiatrist said he needed to go to boarding school or like some shit like that. I don't know. So she was worried that would happen again.
Oh my God.
So I don't know. This family, I really hate to say it because I think they're all very good people, but I don't know if they're really the brightest of the bunch.
It just seems like there's things that have happened to them that the book and stuff doesn't mention.
Or
like,
they just
there's
don't
just
go
a lot
into
of like trauma that they've been through that it doesn't really get into that was probably fodder for this poltergeist haunting.
Exactly, yeah.
That like because that just paints you a picture of like, well, what is it that she literally fainted at the sound of like
psychiatrist,
like,
which it wasn't even the word that was said,
right.
But she thought that's what he said.
Right. So yeah, it just goes to show this family has been through some shit.
Yeah. So the Society of Psychical Research was this old school paranormal investigation society that was set up in 1882. And their whole goal was to research different aspects of the paranormal in the most like cut and dry, scientific, like boring way possible.
Right.
And all sorts of aspects of the paranormal as well, not just poltergeist activity. So she went ahead, Peggy did call the Society of Psychical Research, and a Maurice Gross was assigned to the case.
Here enters one of our leading characters.
Yes, Maurice Gross.
Very interesting fellow.
Yes, kind of a king.
In a way, yeah.
In a kind of a way, maybe I think he deserves a pop-off king.
Yeah. His dedication to this case is incredible.
Is
truly.
Really great. And he is in The Conjuring 2. They kind of make him seem like he's just like this fraud in The Conjuring 2 or like something like that. I can't even remember exactly, but
this is why the British miniseries is so excellent. It's all like he's kind of the driving force. Like it's more about Maurice's relationship with the family, and obviously you'll talk about the tragedy he went through,
right.
And it's a much better picture than the Conjuring 2's version.
Absolutely. So Maurice Grosse was an inventor and a member of the SPR, Society of Psychical Research. He was specifically interested in what happened to the spirit after the body dies. Now, he only became more interested in this case, or in this idea of what happens after the body dies, when his daughter, Janet, not to be confused with with the Hodgson family, but his own daughter, Janet, died from head injuries in a motorcycle accident in 1976. Now, there were a bunch of weird coincidences that happened along with Janet's death. Right before she died, I believe the day before she died, she sent a letter to her brother for his birthday that arrived the day of her death or the day after her death. I can't remember exactly which one it was.
Goodness.
And the card was this cartoon of a woman, like one of these black and white cartoons. If you saw it, maybe we'll share it on social media, but if you saw it, you would recognize this like style of drawing, of cartooning. But it's like a classic greeting card, but it's of a woman with bandages wrapped all around her head. And the caption of the card said, "I was going to send you a bottle of toilet water for your birthday, but then the lid fell on my head." Now, the reason why this made sense at the time, because there was like a huge drought that was in the UK at the time.
Okay.
So that's why the joke kind of made sense.
Okay, interesting.
At the time. Now it's funny reading it now. You're like, what does this mean?
Right.
This makes no sense at all. But at the time, it was like a funny joke. Also, I think they called toilet water...
It's like a slang for perfume or
yeah, it's like perfume
like
too, so it could refer to that too. But it's like something about this drought, It's like a play on words, But then she wrote in the card with an arrow pointing up to the person saying, "And there won't be much left of that soon either." Now, she was either referring to water, saying there won't be a lot of toilet water left, or she was saying there won't be much left of my head either, like a joke, being like, "I'm losing my head,"
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah. Also, a broken clock started working the day of her death all of the sudden, and then it stopped at 4:20, which was around the time of her death.
Wow.
Also, the day before or the day of her death, Maurice and his wife went to shul, or to the synagogue, to participate in a day of mourning that exists in the Jewish faith. And they hadn't gone to this in years and years.
Right.
They just kind of on a whim decided to go to services that day.
Oh my goodness.
So that was very strange. And then also the day of the funeral, Maurice asked for a sign from his daughter to see if she was really there in some capacity. So he asked for rain, because they were in a drought, so he thought that would be a good sign.
Right.
And after the funeral, beneath Janet's bedroom window, on the roof beneath her window, the roof was completely wet in that area, whereas the rest of the roof was totally bone dry.
Interesting. Okay.
So a lot of weird things going on.
Very strange. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when he was asked to go investigate the Hodgkins home, he was very interested in this, and he was actually there within an hour when he got the call. So he was there for 3 days before he actually experienced something himself. Like, during those 3 days, someone in another room would be like, "Oh, something just flew open, like a drawer just flew open, or a pillow was just thrown, or the sheets of the bed just ripped open, or whatever."
Right.
But he never actually saw anything himself. But then 3 days later, in the middle of the night, he was with some reporters from the Daily Mirror when they heard a huge crash upstairs. And they went upstairs and they saw that a chair that was in Janet's room had been turned around and moved forward about 4 feet. Now, Janet was still asleep in the room, and he made sure she was still asleep by picking up her arm and letting it drop, and even opening up her eyelids and seeing that her eyes were in the back of her head.
That's a heavy sleeper.
That's a heavy sleeper.
I am an incredibly light sleeper.
Right. I'm a heavy sleeper, but I wouldn't sleep through that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. He even kind of knocked her head a little bit. Not hard, obviously. But
right.
Just, pushed her head over a little bit. But really, the opening up the eyelids thing is intense. And it's like, I wonder if she's just a very heavy sleeper,
Right.
Or if that maybe is something to go along with this activity, that the activity keeps her asleep.
Yeah,
or something like
that's
that.
interesting.
I don't know. So there was a few more weeks of general poltergeist activity, things being thrown, lights turning on and off, knocking, things like that. And Maurice Gross, he was like, I'm going to need some more help with this case. So he went to a meeting of the SPR, and he met a guy named Guy Playfair, our author of today's story, or of today's source.
Yeah.
But Guy couldn't help right then, but he said he would help in the near future. So just keep an eye out. Guy Playfair will be coming up again here soon. So not long after this meeting with Guy Playfair, Maurice saw for himself these marbles being thrown. He saw a marble fly right past his head. He saw a door open and close on its own 4 times, followed by a cool breeze. Then Janet went into her room and closed the door, and 4 marbles hit the door after her. But when the marbles landed on the floor, they didn't bounce or roll or anything. They just stayed right there where they fell.
There's that number 4 again.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, the number 4 again. But they landed right on the floor. Like they just dropped straight down to the ground and just stayed where they were.
Right. Almost
which is
like
so
magnets.
weird. Yeah, like magnets being like if the floor was metal and they were magnets or something like that. And they tried to recreate this so many times and they could never recreate it. Now, my question to them is, why do they have so many goddamn marbles in the house? You know what I mean? Like, I understand you got kids in the house, but it's like everywhere in the house there are marbles. It's like maybe keep the marbles in one room. But maybe they did do that, and that's part of the activity that's weird, is that the marbles were materializing in anywhere in the house, and this was happening. I don't really know, but it seems like they have a lot of goddamn marbles, so I don't know. Anyway, so then the Daily Mirror printed a story about this haunting, as well as there was a radio interview done by Peggy, and this really piqued the interest of Guy Playfair. So then Guy Playfair came back and he joined the story, joined the team. So nothing happened to Playfair at first, similar to like Maurice Gross. So one time Guy Playfair said that they were going downstairs, so they walked down the stairs, but then walked back up the stairs very, very quietly so that no one could really see them coming back up the stairs, and they hid there. And then a marble dropped right in front of Playfair, just in that same way where it would just fall down to the ground and it didn't roll at all.
Right. And I mean, anyone knows if you drop a marble, it's going to roll.
She's going to roll, yeah.
Even if you're on like carpet, it's going to roll at least a little bit.
Right. It's not going to just fall directly down to the ground and just stay there.
Yeah.
And so Guy Playfair once again tried to recreate this a lot, but he couldn't do it. The Daily Mirror came back to try and get some more evidence, but all 3 flash bulbs in the camera went out. Now, this is another thing that happens with poltergeist activity a lot, is like issues with electronics or electricity.
Yep.
So this really makes sense. Now, all of this weird activity was not the only thing that was going on in the house. There was also just a really weird feeling in the house that it's really hard to get evidence for or to even really describe, but a lot of people said they felt like they were being watched in the house, and that the vibe of the house was really, really off and very strange and scary.
Very freaky.
And the family was also just like going through hell for so long with this, even though at this point everything, it doesn't sound like it's that bad. You know, it's like just knocking and things being thrown around. Like that's not that bad. But I mean, it's completely unexplained. And
exactly.
It's and uncontrollable. They have no idea what's going on. And I think all of them were just so on edge. So the feeling of in that house was just really, really scared.
Right.
Everyone was scared. And I think this can only amplify the poltergeist activity even more than it already was. Mm-hmm. Because poltergeist activity really really any kind of haunting really feeds off of fear and anxiety and insecurity.
Right.
And all of these things that they already had in the house, and as well as just high emotions and intense energy.
Right.
Which is all of it is happening in this house. And it was that all of that was happening before the activity started, but it only amped up once the activity did begin.
Right, exactly.
Now, one time, Peggy saw the indentation of a head, though no one was laying in the bed. She said that it looked like a child-sized head. And this reminded her that down the street one time a few years back, a 4-year-old girl was smothered to death by her father, who then immediately killed himself right afterwards.
Good God.
And Peggy ended up with some of their furniture.
Well?
Yikes. So once the activity in the house began, she got rid of all of the furniture that she had from this family's home.
Interesting.
But she thinks that the spirit still remained.
I didn't know that part. I didn't realize that. Wow, okay.
I know, very scary. And Peggy could always tell when trouble would start because she would get a pain in the same part of her head. Which is weird because you don't really hear that a lot about the person that isn't the child of a poltergeist activity having like a physical response to it like that.
Yeah.
But maybe she's just more in tune with it, or I don't know. I mean,
right.
I believe it. Who knows what's going on here? Now, a weird thing is it didn't always just stay in the house. Peggy's brother lived down the street, and one time when they were over there, a plastic piece from a toy just materialized out of thin air, and Peggy's sister-in-law saw it happen. So they're able to see that this thing follows Janet, but really only so far, as we'll see in a little bit here. But then apparitions started happening.
Oh boy.
One time, Peggy's brother saw a light just floating, like an orb of light, floating in their front window. One time, Vic Nottingham, the neighbor from next door, and Peggy both saw an old woman with gray hair and 2 separate windows independently from each other. And Johnny saw an old man with large white teeth.
Okay.
So at this point of our story, over 15 people had experienced or saw something in the house.
Wow.
15 people. That's crazy.
Very crazy.
At this point, Playfair put a tape recorder in the house to see what was happening when only the Hodgkins family was home, and he was able to hear hollow knocks just moving all around the house.
Okay.
Then 2 mediums came to the house. Their names were Annie and George Shaw. They were a married duo, and Annie was able to, is the type of medium where the spirit would kind of speak through her. Apparently she immediately let out a loud cackle, yelling out that she's Gozer, and that, by the way, is where Dan Aykroyd got the name Gozer from for Ghostbusters.
How wild is that?
Yes. But she was saying that she is Gozer, and then George said that Gozer was, quote, a nasty piece of work, some sort of black magic chap. George and Annie then healed Janet's aura, which I don't know how you do that exactly, but they did. And apparently that worked for like a week. But then after that, a bunch of the poltergeist activity started happening again. Like sheets flying everywhere and knocks so loud in the house that the Nottinghams could hear it next door. Pools of water started appearing, and then things started to get violent. Janet said she saw an apparition of an old man that appeared in her chair next to her bed and put his hand over her nose and mouth to try and suffocate her. Then she said she saw another old man sitting on her bed, which she thought was Vic Nottingham's father, who she had a good relationship with and knew. And she got the feeling that this apparition was there protecting her from the other old man.
Okay.
So they tried to take the chair out of the room and take the marbles out of the house and all stuff like that, but when they did, the activity really would start to retaliate.
It didn't like shit getting moved around.
No, it did not. One time it ripped off the iron grill from a fireplace and threw it across the room, almost hitting young Johnny.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is intense. He could have been really, really hurt. Now, they were gonna go on vacation to try and get away from the house to see if that would really help things for them. And also just they needed a break and they needed a quick little vacay.
Right, exactly.
But a senior member of the SPR said that it was time to, quote, rap back. Not rap.
Spitting rhymes.
Spitting rhymes, you know what I'm saying? More so rapping, hitting, knocking on the wall.
Trying to communicate. It was trying to return the favor.
Exactly. It was time to communicate. So they decided to try and communicate with the entity. This is the recording of Maurice Gross, communicating via knocks.
Can you tell me why you are upsetting this family? Is it because you enjoy doing it? You do enjoy doing it. Well, I suggest that now you've got... Now, what does that mean? Why have you done 3 knocks? Now, I ask you the question again. 2 knocks for yes, and 1 knock for no. Now, yes, that's right, you understand. Now, do you enjoy upsetting this family? You do? Well, now, will you please go away? Because I think you've had enough of your jokes. You won't go away. But I would like you to go away, and go away because I think you've been upsetting this family long enough, and it's time you went away. You understand me? Please go away. Yes, you must go away. It's absolutely essential that you go away. No, you mustn't be obstinate. You must go away. Well, you must. I'm sorry, but you must stop annoying this family. You've had enough. You've had a good time. Now please go away. All right? Please go away. I can't say any more to you now. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Then, after that, which was very intense and very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, very weird. They decided to go on vacay, but the only experience they really had was Peggy heard a dog barking from Janet's bed one night, which is very weird. When they came back, though, it was absolute pandemonium. It was just got crazy in the house. A couch levitated 4 feet, Janet was thrown from a chair about 8 feet, and Margaret was frozen on the stairs one day. She said it felt like a cold pressure.
Oh my God.
Then messages started happening. So it started being left around the house. Peggy asked the spirit to write down messages because she was like, enough with this goddamn knocking. 5 minutes later, she found a note on the top of the fridge reading, I will stay in this house. Do not read this to anyone else, or else I will retaliate.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
What a house guest.
What a house guest, Jesus Christ. So, apparently there was no way for anyone to have snuck in and done it because Peggy was in there the entire time. However, it was a paper from Janet's notebook.
Interesting, okay.
Yes. Then the next note appeared on the dining room table and it read, can I have a tea bag? Peggy put one on the table and then right then another one appeared, but it was rumpled and torn right next to the original tea bag. Not long after this, Peggy's ex-husband showed up and he didn't believe any of this bullshit going on in the house. He thought that Peggy was just being crazy. So Peggy was like, no, look at this message that I got. The message of don't show this to anyone or else I will retaliate. She showed it to her ex-husband. Yikes. But then after her ex-husband left, she immediately apologized to the spirit because she realized what she had done and she apologized. And then another message appeared and it read, a misunderstanding. Don't do it again.
Okay, well, at least it gave her a second chance.
Yeah, but it is important to note that the handwriting was very close to Janet's handwriting.
Interesting.
So, I don't know. Because Margaret and Janet have come forward and they said that they faked about 2% of the activity in the house.
Okay.
Kind of saying that if someone came over to experience something and then nothing happened, then they felt bad about it. Or if they wanted some more attention, they would do it and things like that. But they said they only did this about 2% of the time.
Okay.
Now, if they admit to doing it 2% of the time, it's probably done more. They probably did it more than 2% of the time.
Right.
But I don't think they are responsible for all of this by any means necessary.
Yeah.
But these notes maybe was just Janet trying to make her mom feel better, possibly.
Right,
We don't really know. But maybe it really did happen, or maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know. Now, at this point, Margaret and Janet were just being thrown around, especially at night when they were in their rooms. Janet started going into trances where she would scream and cry and say things like, where's Gozer? He'll kill you. Where's Gozer? He'll kill you.
So sometimes it's named Gozer.
Yeah, in that situation, she said Gozer. I don't know.
Interesting, okay.
So maybe did she hear the Gozer thing before and she just misremembered it and she was saying Gozer? Or maybe, I don't know what this is, but
That's
she kept
interesting.
saying that in these trances.
Gozer.
Yeah. Another set of mediums from Brazil came in, and they were really the only, mediums in general, were really the only ones that could calm down the activity.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So when these two Brazilian mediums came in, they said that Janet was actually a powerful medium, and she needed to start her training immediately. Unfortunately, though, she did not do this and did not start her training. Now, after that, Janet fell into another one of her trances and started drawing pictures. She drew pictures of blood and knives and the word blood over and over again. Eventually drew a picture of a woman bleeding from her neck with the name Watson written above it.
Watson, okay.
Yes. They asked Peggy if she knew what the name Watson meant, And Peggy said that the previous owner's name, their last name was Watson, and that the man died in the house, and that Mrs. Watson died from a tumor in her throat not long after Mr. Watson died, and she died just up the road. So interesting that she drew a picture of someone bleeding from their throat.
Yeah.
When she had a tumor in her throat. Very weird. So at this point, it's December of 1977, and the activity is getting to be more and more powerful. One time the fridge was opened so hard that it even dented the stove. Now, the girls started having these like dream episodes while they were asleep. They would yell out things, and sometimes they would even answer questions. Like one time Margaret said that there were 10 little things causing chaos, and they asked her what they meant and who these things were, and she said, number 1 is a baby, 2 is a little girl, 3 is a big girl, 4 is a young girl about 15, 5 is a very old lady, 6 is a young boy, 7 is getting on to about 18, 8 is an old man, 9 is, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't have a face, and number 10 has gone away.
So 9 doesn't have a face and 10 has gone away.
Yeah, 10 is a little bit anticlimactic, I'll be honest with
Yeah.
you. But number 9, though, that's scary, and it goes along with our Faceless Phantoms episode.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes, so I don't know. She's then suddenly said the name Frank Watson. They asked who Watson was, and she said, the man who died in the chair downstairs. And Mr. Watson actually did die from a brain hemorrhage while sitting in the chair in the living room.
Wow.
Yes.
And they kept that chair.
And yeah, I think so. I think they did have the same furniture from who lived there before.
Yeah. It
I
must have
think
just
so.
been like the place was furnished with it or something.
Yeah. And even if it wasn't the same furniture, it was he died in a chair downstairs in the living room. I'm
Right.
not sure. So Mr. Playfair decided to hypnotize Janet with the help of Dr. Ian Fletcher from the SPR. Dr. Fletcher was a hypnotist, surgeon, and a member of the Magic Circle, which is a society of people doing illusion magic. So Dr. Fletcher drew her into a trance and asked her some questions. He asked if Janet knew who caused all the activity, and Janet said, me and my sister. But when asked why she thought she and her sister were to blame, she said she didn't know. Then he asked who started all the trouble, and she said, none of us. Then when asked what all of this trouble was coming from, Janet said, an increase of unhappiness. Which makes sense. Maybe that because the father ran away and not ran away, but bailed on them, and then Johnny had to go to boarding school, and none of them really
Right.
understood why he had to go to boarding school.
Right.
So there was an increase in unhappiness in the family.
There absolutely was, and as we know, Poltergeist, it's sort of rife. It's the right environment.
Exactly. Now, loud whistles and barks started to come from Janet around this time. And it seemed like it was coming from her area, but maybe not really like actually from her. Like it happened like from behind her. It kind of sounded like the sound was coming from behind her.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But this is when the voice started happening. Now, a lot of people, if you've seen The Conjuring 2, you know what we're talking about, how this voice started to come from Janet. And it was the voice of an old man, a very raspy sounding, scary sounding, like
Yes.
almost demonic sounding voice. 2 other people from the SPR, Anita Gregory and John Bailoff, were there with Maurice Gross and Guy. And they were there during the first communication with this voice.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Bye.
How he did that. Now, you're going to tell me how you knocked that settee over? Come on, tell me how you knocked it over.
By the bottom.
You what? You got it what?
Pulled it by the bottom.
Yes.
Underneath.
Underneath it, yes.
Yes.
And what did you do? Then what did you do?
Make Janet come in the room first.
Why did you have to make Janet come in the room first?
So she gets the blame.
So she gets the blame.
Yes.
Could you do it if Margaret came in the room first?
Might be her.
Or if Mrs. Hodgson came in the room first, could you do it then?
No, she's too old.
She's too old. Could you do it if I came in the room first?
No.
Well, what's age got to do with it? What difference does it make how
Take
old?
energy from young people, not old ones.
Oh, you only take energy?
Yes.
Why can't you take energy from old people?
I use it all in the day.
Pardon?
I use all.
Oh, old people use more energy during the day. And do young people store it up then?
Yes.
How do you take their energy?
Electric shock.
You take it by electric shocks.
Mine.
Do you take electrical energy then?
Yes, I can.
If you can.
I can take electric.
You can take electrical
Yes.
energy. If you don't take that energy, could you tip the settee up if you didn't take that energy?
No, I couldn't.
You couldn't
Impossible.
do it? Impossible.
Yes.
You always have to use energy from people.
Yes.
Can't you take energy from anything else?
No.
You can't.
No.
What else could you do with energy?
Tip the chairs over, pull the plugs out,
Yeah, but you can do other things, can't you?
put books through the window.
No, put books through the window. Who put the book through the window?
I did.
You did.
I took a shortcut and put it through it.
Ah, I see. How would you have done, if I'd have said to you, put that book through the window, without breaking the window, how would you have done it?
Opened the window and thrown
Sorry?
it. Opened the window and thrown it out.
You would have opened the window and thrown it out.
Into Peggy's window, front room.
Yeah, but could you have thrown it through the glass itself without breaking the glass?
Yes.
How would you do that then?
You would materialise it one night in there.
You would dematerialise it?
Yes.
How do you do that then?
I don't know, but I'd do it somehow, don't I?
You don't know how you do it.
No. A gift.
It's a gift, is it? Well, surely you should know how to do it.
They asked some questions, and it seemed like this guy said his name was Joe Watson. Maurice told this Watson fellow to leave, and he said to fuck off.
Whoa, okay, Watson.
Watson popping off quick. Now, the next time they talked to this voice, he referred to himself as Bill. So interesting that different names, Joe, Bill,
Yeah.
Joe, and yeah, just interesting that it's
Gozer,
different names.
Gober.
Yeah, I don't know. And they asked him why he threw Janet out of bed, and he said that that's where he used to sleep. And this kind of goes along with us with an instance that Peggy had, where one time she saw sheets flying off the girl's bed and an indentation of someone laying down on the bed while the girls were actually off at school. Now they asked him why he hadn't moved on to the next plane of existence, and he said, quote, "I'm not a heaven man."
Ooh, so scary.
Yeah.
Saying he's not a good guy.
Yikes. Then, on December 14th of 1977, Janet got her first period. So this, once again, goes along with what is happening. But on this very day, the same day that Janet got her first period, the voice asked, "Why do girls have periods?" And this man that was there named Hugh Pencott had to explain it to this voice, the voice of Janet, because Janet was the one making this voice, and she often made it so no one could look at her during when she had this voice. And
right.
it was very weird. But so this man named Hugh Pencott that was there, he had to explain what periods were to this voice. That might make you think okay, this is just Janet putting on a fake voice. So, and asking this question that was maybe hard for her to ask when she's herself. But doing this voice is really, really hard, and her voice was never sore. She never was coughing or asking for water, and her voice always sounded back to normal when she was out of these trances again.
Right.
So I don't know, it's just very weird. I mean, maybe this thing was just curious. He had never learned about, Mr. Watson had never learned about what periods were, so he just decided to ask on this day because it was relevant.
Right.
I don't know. It is weird though. I who fucking knows. But after she got her first period, after Janet did, the haunting reached a new level. She started levitating.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, one of the neighbors, David Nottingham, gave her a red marker and said, "You should draw a circle around a light fixture when you're levitating, and that is something that you couldn't do if you weren't levitating." And right after that, when David Nottingham left the room and closed the door, she said, "I'm levitating," and Nottingham couldn't open the door. But when he finally did open the door, she was back on the ground, and there was a neat circle of red around the light fixture. So if she had like moved the bed or something, you would have heard the dragging of the furniture for her to get up there. And also the circle wouldn't be a neat circle because she would have had to keep jumping up to make the circle.
Yeah.
So it would be like an uneven circle.
It's like the entity itself wants to plant a seed of doubt.
Right.
By not letting you directly witness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it almost wants to plant a seed of doubt.
It's very weird.
Very interesting.
And also, it's like maybe she actually never was levitating. She just thought she was levitating. And the activity just like manifested that circle on the ceiling.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. It's because a lot of this is just like playing with people's minds.
Exactly.
And I mean literally playing with people's minds, like perhaps like the chemical activity in people's brains.
Right.
Then one day, Janet said she was able to walk through the wall from her bedroom into Peggy's bedroom. And Peggy, soon after that, saw one of Janet's books in her own bedroom when she knew that she had seen this book in Janet's bedroom just a second before. So they were like, okay, now this thing is able to materialize or dematerialize matter. Like, this is very interesting. So they tested it again, asking it to move this big red cushion. And it did move it, and it moved it onto the roof. 3 people outside saw this red cushion just suddenly appear, and 2 of them saw what looked like Janet jumping on her bed 2 feet in the air, but on her back. So just like going up and down on her back in the air. It's possible she could have done this on her own, but it's very weird, and also possible that she couldn't have done this on her own.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now, experiments continued with Janet and this voice. They would tape her mouth shut, put water in her mouth, and wrap scarves around her face, and sometimes all 3 at the same time, and yet the voice would still continue. They also found that the voice didn't come from the front of her throat, but rather the back of her neck, which is possible. It's possible to speak this way, but it's very, very hard to do it, and you need like training to do this. So it's a weird thing for a 12-year-old girl to just be able to do.
Right, yeah.
Then, right before Christmas, 2 of their beloved goldfish died, and when they noticed, the voice said, "I done that," and said that the spirit energy accidentally electrocuted these things to death.
Okay.
And then on Christmas Day, their parakeet died.
Oh, wow.
Unexpectedly. Yeah, so I don't know. Later that very day, the entity attacked by wrapping a curtain around the neck of Janet. And this happened a couple days later again, and then it happened 6 more times. So that actually does happen in The Conjuring too, with the curtain wrapping around Janet's neck.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that did happen again. Soon after 1978 began, the voice, which at this point was called Fred, said to get rid of a bag of knives that Peggy had. And it turns out this bag of knives was also from the murder house down the street, where this 4-year-old girl was smothered and then the man killed himself.
Holy shit, how are things from this house getting in their house?
Well, no, Peggy, like, accepted the knives.
Holy God.
Like, took them in and then didn't think to, like, get rid of them when this activity started. Which is like, get rid of the fucking knives. Mr. Watson said that if she didn't get rid of the knives, another entity named Tommy would do something dangerous with the knives.
Oh, great. Tommy.
And Peggy didn't do anything about the knives. I guess she thought that was bullshit for some reason. I don't know why. Like, what the fuck? Then the next day, Janet said that a knife was following her around upstairs and dancing in front of her. When Peggy went upstairs, she didn't see anything, but when she was walking back downstairs, a knife that she had left in the kitchen was on the stairs. Now, this is when some really weird shit happens, and I mean that literally. On January 15th, 1978, Margaret said that she was using the bathroom, but when she was leaving, she felt a tap on her shoulder, and when she turned around, like a turd, like actual shit, was used to write the word shit on the wall.
Oh, God.
A few days later, Peggy was hit in the small of the back with shit wrapped in toilet paper in the kitchen while Margaret was in the bathroom. What the actual fuck? Then, the fires started.
Oh boy, here we go.
There was one time a fire that started in a drawer, and when they opened the drawer, there was a box of matches in there, like a scorched box of matches, but there was no matches actually in the box. Then a different medium came in, named Jerry, and Jerry said that he thought it was an old woman haunting the girls. And he, like, cleansed the energy and cleansed the aura of Janet, and this helped for a little while. But then the shit started happening again, literally. One time when the youngest boy was taking a bath, shit was just started appearing in the bathtub and around the backs of the wall and everything like this. And just like shit puddles started appearing in the kitchen.
That's awful.
I know. It's crazy. Maurice actually took a sample of these shit puddles, and the scientist who did it said that it was actually cat piss.
That's weird. And they don't own a cat,
They don't
right?
own a cat, yeah. Now, at this point, the voice started to not care if people were looking at Janet anymore when the voice started, because at first Janet didn't want anyone to look, or the voice didn't want anyone to look while the voice was speaking, but at this point, the voice didn't care.
Yeah, I mean, if it's slinging shit everywhere, why is it going to care if you see it talking?
Yeah, exactly. They brought in a ventriloquist by the name of Ray Allen.
Well, that'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And Ray Allen said that Janet confessed to making all the voices up herself using her diaphragm, but Janet probably didn't even know what a diaphragm was or didn't know what the word diaphragm was.
Right.
Either. And Janet said that she just zoned out the whole time that Ray Allen was talking to her and just nodded because she was so bored of this shit at this point. Because she had so many people, speech therapists and mediums and reporters and all of these people coming in asking her all of these questions. So and she's like a 12-year-old girl. She's just like, I'm fucking over this. Both Margaret and Janet said that they saw a man with long fingernails walking around their bedroom.
Ew.
Peggy said she saw a child in a nightgown floating by the bathroom, and she saw a partial apparition of a man from the waist down walking up the stairs. And Peggy's brother saw a man, clear as day, sitting at the kitchen table at 5 p.m. So this wasn't like in the middle of the night or something, just 5 p.m. Janet went to go stay at a hospital for a couple months because the activity was so bad. And while she was gone, the activity died down, but it didn't fully stop either. And in September of 1978, she came back. But within 30 minutes of being there, she saw an apparition of the child in a nightgown. Now, after this, another medium came to the house and said that a 24-year-old woman was involved in this case. And Janet Gross, Maurice's daughter, was 24 years old at the time of her death.
Interesting, okay.
And this whole time, Maurice was really interested in this case because, well, for many reasons, but partially because he thought that maybe this was his daughter trying to get in touch with him again.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And using this family as a way to try and talk with him, thinking that this was another one of those coincidences, those synchronicities that were happening.
Right.
Now, soon after this medium came in and said that the case involved a 24-year-old woman, the activity kind of slowed down.
Interesting.
And it really just kind of slowed down and tapered off, and then finally it just completely stopped.
As these poltergeist stories usually happen.
Right.
It starts off small, crescendos, and then dwindles out.
Right, exactly. And it was interesting because Guy Playfair, but especially Maurice Gross, became really attached to this new family and kind of became like the new dad for the family, kind of.
Right.
The family really liked having him around, and they were actually close with Maurice Gross until his death in the early 2000s or the mid 2000s or something like that. And the Warrens, I didn't even really mention them in the story. They did come to the house like once or twice or a few times, and they got some recordings done of the voice, but they never really did too much for the family. And I don't mean that in any sort of judgmental way, but they were some of them, the people that did come to the house. But there wasn't a big happening that happened around the Warrens coming to the house.
Right, exactly.
And so, yeah, this activity, it kind of just stopped on its own eventually, which these things happen with poltergeist activities because, poltergeist activity usually starts very naive and childlike, and then it gets more and more advanced in the way in as far as it goes, and then it kind of just tapers off and stops, like it grows out of it. Kind of. And it makes sense as the girls were getting older, at first the activity really popped off and it got more and more intense. especially around when Janet got her first period, but then it really started to taper off maybe as the girls got older and they weren't in the throes of puberty in the same way as they were before.
Exactly, right.
So, I don't know. This case, I think, is fascinating, and I know it's kind of an anticlimactic ending that it just kind of ends on its own, but that's truly what happened.
It's an incredible story, truly one of the top 5, in terms of just bigness,
right.
One of the top 10 episodes, probably, in terms of subjects we've covered. It's huge.
It's huge. It's just so fascinating, and I hope you guys enjoyed the story, and if you guys have any thoughts or if you've heard other things about this case or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us. We're so fascinated by it, and we want to hear more about it. You can reach out to us on any of our socials, or you can email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com.
All right, folks, and here it comes. The names of our top-tier Patreon subscribers.
Please.
With 2 new additions. Of course, the Dream, James Watkins, the Finnish Face Via Alunkfus, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid, Chris Hackworth, the Oh-So-Suave, Sean Richardson, the British Bonebreaker, Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool, Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude, Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand, Noeline Favilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud, Carl Staub, the Firestarter, Heather Carter, the Conqueror, Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Sir of Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, and the newcomers, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, and the Rapscallion Ryan Crow.
Thank you so much to all of our Patreon subscribers, especially our 2 newest subscribers. You are so welcome. We're so happy to have you here as a citizen of the Milky Way, and we are so just overjoyed to have you, and thanks for being a supporter of the program.
Absolutely. If you'd like to join that list of names, you just head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast. Of course, like, rate, subscribe. Give us a 5-star review on whatever outlet you listen on.
Yes, please. It really helps us out, and it's just a quick, easy way to support the show, and we really, it means the world to us.
And once again, keep sending in those listener stories. It's coming soon.
It's coming soon, and we want to have as many cool stories as possible, so please reach out to us. You can reach out to us on any of our socials or email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night. Goodbye.
Goodbye.